Okay. So welcome everyone to our very, very exciting kind of fireside chat without fire here. My name is Sigal Barsaid. I am on the faculty here in the management department at the Wharton School. And I have the privilege of introducing two people who, quite honestly, if you said to me, I could work for, and mind you, part of the reason I became a professor is so I don't have to work for anyone, although don't tell Jeff that. Two people who I would choose to work for more than anybody else in the world, and I'm not exaggerating, would be these two people right here. And in fact, that's where actually I should end my remarks. But I'm actually quite serious, and in fact have sent at least one of them, a lot of people to work for them at Wharton, because I'm like, there's no better place than under Jeff at the Leadership Center. And I just am not sending them to Colorado because I want to keep them here. But let me give you, for those of you who don't know as much about them as I do, let me just give you a little bit of background. And I'm going to start with Jeff, to my closest, and then to Rob, our speaker. So Jeff, for those of you, I can't imagine, can you raise your hand? Is there anybody in here who doesn't know who Jeff is? Thank you. All right. This is for
Good
you,
candor.
okay?
Yeah.
So
We'll just do this personally.
Yeah, exactly. So Jeff is the executive director of the Ann and John McNulty Leadership Program here at Wharton. But that is only one of the, that says almost nothing, because if you then start to look at everything Jeff does, he's basically chief cook and bottle washer and everything for everything leadership here at the Wharton School. On a personal note, he heads the team that runs Management 610, for those of you who know that, and that is a huge endeavor in its own right. He also leads the team that runs all of our co-curricular leadership development activities here at Wharton. He also directs the school's efforts in the Penn Wharton Global Leadership Institute. He co-hosts Leadership in Action on Sirius Radio. He's in charge of the Wharton Lippman Prize. He's now the academic director of the newly launched Penn Athletics Wharton Leadership Academy. And then he occasionally goes over to Exec Ed, and he runs AMP. And then, of course, he's asked by 8 million people at the school, because he's competent, and that is the curse of competence, to run everything else, even when it has nothing to do with his program or agenda. And so we're very grateful for that. So that is, and he also serves as interviewer. So that's Jeff. Now, with the amount of detail I just gave you, you're going to think that like Rob is slacking next to Jeff.
Maybe I should just interview you.
Because his
you seem much more interesting.
His bio doesn't give me all of the details of everything he does. But let me start with the highlights of Rob at the very least. So he is the Chief Executive Officer of Vail Resorts since 2006. And he has been the chairman of Vail Resorts Board of Directors since 2009. He actually has been a ski bum since 1991 at least, well, probably earlier. But around Vail since 1991. But in between doing that, he not only was a Wharton alum, of which we are very proud, but he also was associated with Apollo Management, a very famous private equity firm, since its founding in 1990. And then he said, the heck with that stuff, I'm going to the mountain, right? But then it turned out to be many, many mountains that he's going to. And Vail Resorts has more than 30,000 employees. And one of the things about Rob is that he is absolutely passionate about the personal development, I would argue, of each and every one of them. And one example I had of that was that I was visiting Rob out at Vail, and I was giving a talk, and he was coming with me, and his office, I think it's on the 8th floor?
10th, yeah.
Okay, 10th, right, what was counting. Right, so 10th floor, and we go down the elevator, and almost at every floor, this elevator stops, and somebody gets in. Now, as someone who has myself has a very difficult time actually remembering names and faces, I was really concerned for Rob, because, his employees are coming in. Is he going to know them? Are they going to be upset that he doesn't know them? There are a lot of them. I mean, not all 30,000 are in his building, but a fair amount are. And literally, so the first one gets in on the 9th floor. Rob's like, hey, blah, 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 has something to say. The 8th floor, hey, by the 5th floor, I'm starting to really sweat. Is this going to continue? There was only one person, I don't know if you remember this, Rob, but there was only one person that you didn't know, and he looked incredibly embarrassed about it, and I think the person had been there for like 3 weeks or something. And I think that's very, very characteristic of Rob's leadership style, which is very personal, very immediate, and also does do a good job in remembering names and faces. How has this been shown more broadly? Vail as an organization has been recognized in many ways under Rob's leadership. It's been recognized as one of America's best employers in Forbes for 2016 and 17, one of the world's 50 most innovative company from Fast Company, the world 10 top most innovative companies in travel from Fast Company, and Rob himself has had myriad awards, including what I thought was kind of cool, the Global Game Changer by Forbes, and one of the most creative people in business by Fast Company. And so you really see this, and one of the things that Rob is the most interested in, and one of the ways I got to know him, is actually through his culture. And his culture has been written up in various places, including, I might add, by me. And I was very happy to see that in your bio, in an HBR article about the culture of joy, and how Rob, as a leader, really fosters a culture of joy. And quite frankly, if I could have put it, I would have also put it under the culture of companionate love, because I think that that is just very emblematic of his leadership style. And finally, the last thing I will say in terms of Rob is that we were meeting, and we had lunch together, and it was one of those times where you meet someone and you're just like, wow, they really get it. I mean, they really, really get it. And what Rob really gets is people and emotional intelligence. And I gave him the highest praise that for me, I could almost give anyone, but I'm not so sure he recognized it as such, which is at the end of the lunch, I said, you know, Rob, this has been fascinating. And you know what? You really could come and be a doctoral student. And like from an academic, you pretty much can't say anything better than that. And he's like, you know, thanks. I have a day job, but thank you. But his insights and his understanding, and not to mention his generosity, because not only does he actually practice this in his own organization, but through contributions he's made here to Wharton, he's actually helping us do research on emotional intelligence and other things that are advancing things that everybody will go that far. So with that, wow. And I don't know if you even have time to speak now, but with that, I leave you to your conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Do you want to just tell Seagal stories for like 40 minutes, and then we can just
I feel like the bar has been raised just a little too high.
Well, thanks for being here, Rob. We're delighted to have you here on campus over these days here. I know you were already in a class this morning. There's some board meeting stuff to do tonight and later tomorrow. And you have a son who's here.
That is true.
At Wharton right now.
But I will not call him out.
All right, yes, we won't identify exactly where he is in the room right now. Does it take you back to your own undergraduate days?
No, it does. I mean, I think it's, you know, I had an amazing time, right. You know, here at Penn. Definitely the most impactful thing I've ever done in my life in terms of shaping who I am today. But I should point out that I actually did not start in Wharton. I started in the engineering school and realized I was actually not smart enough. So that's why I came to Wharton.
And what do you remember about your time?
I think what I remember was just the intellect of so many people who were here, and the ability to bounce ideas, and at the same time kind of have fun. Mm-hmm. And I've always found when I was here, and I kind of find it the same today, it's there's an amazing amount of just intelligence and topics and content that comes out of the school without a lot of pretension. Mm-hmm. And so obviously having moved to Colorado and where I work, right, that was an important thing for me, and I think that kind of got set here when I was at Penn.
So if we go back to Rob Katz, Wharton Penn undergrad, did you think one day you would be CEO of Vail Resorts?
No, never.
What did you think you'd be doing?
I was hoping to have a job.
Okay.
that was number one.
That's the bar here, folks.
That was the bar. And yeah, had a concentration in finance, and so I was definitely focused on getting into some kind of financial role. And I think actually when I graduated here, I was thinking that leadership was around kind of analytic leadership. I don't know that a lot of what I'm now passionate about around both analytic and kind of more emotional leadership, I don't think I had a sense of that. So to me, it was like, yeah, the best job I could get was something on Wall Street, which is where I started, and something where I could use that kind of analytic approach.
So then at what point did you say to yourself, I would like to be the next CEO at Vail?
Well, I guess that started with saying to myself, I started at Apollo when Apollo started in 1990. And somewhere around 2011, 2012, 2001, 2002, I started to feel like I was enjoying overseeing the portfolio companies at Apollo more than I was actually enjoying doing the deals and doing the acquisitions. And so as I started to gravitate towards that, I kind of felt like, I've now done this. It was actually from 1988 to around 2002. And I felt like there was probably, something else in life. And I actually loved Apollo. I took so much away from it. I'm still very close to all the partners there. But I just felt like, there must be something else that, some new experience. I actually, at that point, had 2 kids, one who was 2 and one who was 1. And my wife and I said, we're going to leave New York and pick up and move somewhere else. So we actually looked across the country and said we're going to live in Boulder. And we picked that because it was close to the mountains. Actually, when I left New York, I had a book on farming. And I had committed myself that I was going to try something completely different.
You were going to be a farmer?
Farmer. This is true. I don't think I've ever told you
No,
actually.
I definitely don't know this.
And then I actually learned what farming entailed, and then I decided I was not going to be a farmer.
You were like, you know what, CEO.
I realized that whole, Jewish kid from New York at Wharton, not farmer. And so, wound up landing in Boulder in 2002. I was still doing some consulting for Apollo, and then dove pretty heavy into everything Boulder has to offer, which is a lot of unique things, one of which was a class or a workshop on how to lead groups. And so when I started doing that, I started to realize that actually I didn't have a lot of skills about how to do that. That was not, they taught a lot of things at Apollo. That was not necessarily one of the things I walked away with. But I loved it, right? And I felt like that same analytic challenge and puzzle that might have been for spreadsheets, that now all of a sudden was around people. And so when the job at Vail opened up in 2006, I raised my hand for it.
Very cool. And how did you first get involved at Vail?
So Apollo made an investment in Vail in 1991.
Yep.
And so it was a portfolio company that I was responsible for. And then Apollo sold its position in 2002, around the time that I actually moved to Colorado. But I stayed on the board just because I had a passion for the business. I obviously had been around it a long time. And so I was just still on the board in 2006 when my predecessor left. And a couple of the board members asked me, is this something you would do? And I actually shared with them that I was interested in doing it, but only if the board would get behind kind of a best-in-class approach to everything that the company was going to do: marketing, insurance, finance, and culture and HR, and all of the things that I thought could be done with a group of people. I mean, I think the 33,000 people we have at Vail Resorts are some of the most passionate people I think you'll find in any company. The question, I think, for me, and when I took the job, was could you focus that passion that they had for the mountains and for their sport, right, into this leadership kind of development and performance opportunity?
Yeah. And for the 33,000 employees, just help us understand how many of those are seasonal, how many of those are full-time? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, so we have about 8,000 are full-time year-round staff, and the rest are seasonal. And of those seasonal employees, actually 60% are new every year. Yeah. And so we actually hire, even, and that's a lot of people, 33,000, but actually we hire, I think it's, and then we actually hire sometimes 2 times, right, for the same job during a season. So we're hiring 20 to 25,000 people a year. And so creating a culture within that, given how transient our workforce is its own trick.
So you've got this best-in-class focus, clearly a focus on culture. What were some of the other larger goals you were bringing in as you started at Vail?
I think one of the other goals, I think the ski business, it's a huge part of the travel, sector, but it's also a sport that was started really by just enthusiasts. So it's different than the hotel business, let's say, which was really started to be a business right from the beginning. And I think there's a tension within the industry, and you see it, across every one of the communities around, making money, and is this really a business, and are we willing to, acknowledge? Now, everyone who lives in those communities, they all do want to make money, but there's a question as to whether the ski resort is allowed to make money. And I guess my goal was, well, wait a minute, could we bring all of this together? Could we have a culture within our company and a connection with our employees and within our communities where people could see that actually creating careers, and so that the people who went into the ski business for their passion could also have a successful career, no matter what discipline you were in. That was a real goal of mine, and kind of still is, as I sit here today.
Well, I can remember, I guess it was probably last summer, talking to Jeff Clem, who is your Vice President of Talent and Development, also the person with the name most close to mine, K-L-E-M. So, but he was relating to me, there was an all-company town hall, right? And so you have staff at the various resorts who are video conferenced in, and you made a statement during the town hall that you wanted Vail to be the best leadership company in the world. And the way he told the story, he said that it was a moment where everybody kind of really sat up and took notice.
Right.
So first of all, great goal. Couldn't agree more. Best leadership company in the world. But how's progress? What's employee reaction like? What does it mean?
Right. Well, if you're going to go, you just go big.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, I think a couple things. So the way that came up was we were talking about kind of personal aspirations. What would most actualize you? And we had a lot of people who were actually sharing from the stage their own personal stories around this. And then when I closed, I said this was mine. Now, since then, it's actually a little hard because now everybody says, well, if you want to be the greatest leadership company, you need to do these 10 things or these 20 things or these 50 things. But what I've tried to share back is actually, I think being the greatest leadership company does not mean that you have reached a destination where you are crowned the greatest leadership company. I think what it means is that, no, the greatest leadership company will be one that's constantly improving, constantly has issues that they're addressing. To me, I think the barometer of it, though, would be, and again, I'm talking about the kind of people leadership component, is if everyone in our company felt that they had a great boss. So if we had 33,000 people, each one of which who felt their boss, not that they liked their boss, but they felt that their boss was an amazing coach, an amazing mentor, somebody who, when they left our company, whether it was after 2 months or 20 years, right, really shaped the rest of their life or career, that would be a touchstone on, I think, what that means. And I do think that again, that's more of like a Jim Collins BHAG. I'm not sure that's not something that we have on the agenda for next month. But I think it definitely, sank in with people that, no, this was not something we talk about as a button that you put on or something, but no, this was actually going to be, the core and strongest goal of the company.
Will you describe a little bit for everybody some of your talent management strategies? How do you really invest in the employees? I know how big a focus it's been for you.
I think it's really in two directions. So I think one is we have leadership classes at every single level for our full-time year-round staff. So that's where we started. Was we took a top-down approach, which usually when you say that, a lot of people react negatively to anything that's top-down. But in my view, the reason why it had to be top-down was if you're setting culture, you need to have the most senior people in the company actually living that culture. And if you can't get that, there's no point in broadcasting a bunch of other messages to everybody in the company. So we kind of started there. And then slowly we've moved this culture down. And it's really been based on emotional intelligence and on exploring people's vulnerabilities. Because one of the things that I think you find is what inhibits people, I think it's even more so in corporate America, I feel like, than necessarily in private equity, but what inhibits people is an unwillingness to take risk, whether that's personal risk or business risk, And so exploring kind of why that is, yeah, it leads to the kind of innovation opportunities that we've now gotten credit for. And so we call them, camps like base camp and roots, and so we use kind of mountain, verbiage, but essentially everyone across the entire full-time year-round staff is somehow engaging in this. We also had everyone take an insights test that essentially gave everyone a personality profile based on the insight colors, red, yellow, blue, and green. We have blocks, literally Lego blocks that everybody has on their desk that has these, and in the exact order that their personality sets up as. And one thing was when that was recommended to me, I thought it was the dumbest idea I'd ever heard because it was so amateurish, and and here we were taking this very complex thing, but it actually was the absolute best thing we ever did because it gave people a language to talk about leadership and personality and their emotions. Because without it, nobody would open up at all. Where we have to go, though, is this seasonal staff that we were talking about earlier. And so I think this broader goal around Greatest Leadership Company is, could we take this same work that we've now done a good job with at the, through our 8,000 people and actually take it down to both the long-time and, first-time seasonal staff. So if somebody, shows up and is there for 4 months, that they actually, that 5 years later in their career, they talk about how, well, when I was at Vail Resorts, that really shaped who I became as a leader. And that's kind of the next step in our goal.
How different would that be from the average experience of a seasonal employee, whether that's at Vail or somewhere else in the ski industry?
Yeah, that would be really different. Because I think right now, I think going to a ski resort for many people is, an extension of high school or college without studying. So, there is a party atmosphere, much like in universities, right, that exists within our resorts. And I think some people come thinking that maybe they'll stay for a long time. A lot of people come just saying, hey, I'm just going to have this, great fun time and then go off, and do something with my career. And at the moment, us and a lot of our, competitors in the ski resort industry focus on, showing up on time, don't drink while you're, on the mountain.
Make eye contact.
Yeah, right. I mean, make eye contact, be helpful, be friendly. But we're not actually going that next step. And I will say, and not to embarrass my son, but I will say that I used to get a lot of pushback from our folks around, well, but they're only here 4 months. So how could you possibly make an impact on somebody like that? And I have shared the story of my son and when he got a new baseball coach for 1 summer during high school. And he was an amazing coach. And I saw in 2 months, right, the impact that had on my son, especially at that time, right, in his life. And what you realize is, no, at that time of your life, if you have an amazing boss, that is something that can last a lifetime. Yeah. I think a responsibility that we have to take on.
Well, it's interesting because we talk a lot when we think about the experiences that we put together for Wharton students about meaningful and memorable experiences. Something that when you're in a situation which is similar to the one you found yourself in, you'll go back to that place and you'll say, wow, it was really unique, but it was personally meaningful to me. You've got memorable down. I would imagine everyone who's come and been a seasonal employee at a ski resort remembers parts from that period of time, and so injecting meaning in it, I would agree, could have a great impact.
And I think it's true, I'd say it's true for our whole company as a whole, which is we start with this huge advantage where people's emotions are already on the surface because they're passionate. We talk about it as passion. And it's one of the core things that we look for in anyone we hire, actually in any position, right? That they've got to exude some kind of passion because that's what actually connects everybody in our company. But passion is really just, right, emotions on the surface. And so the question is, can we, we have, I think, a very unique opportunity that folks in other businesses don't have because their employees may not feel as passionate about the product. So it's actually much harder. We start with that advantage. We just have to redirect it from skiing or riding into their career.
So Sigal mentioned emotional intelligence, and you've mentioned the role of emotions a few times. You've been just one of the leading supporters of research on emotional intelligence, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why that's been important to you and what you're learning from your involvement.
Yeah, I think one of the things that gets underappreciated, I think, as people go into their career is how important EQ is to their success. We actually just did a talent review in our company, and we're assessing who was high potential. And the assessment really came down to three things: IQ, EQ, and ambition. But the part that we spend the most time on is EQ, right? Because usually, especially the talent that we're reviewing, they've already probably shown that they have IQ to get to where they are in their career. And it becomes that EQ piece that is the differentiator. And yet, I think whether it's in school or whether it's in those first few jobs that people have, they spend so little time on that. And so yet, it's what everyone values, right, in terms of who you promote and who ultimately becomes the leaders within a company. So my thought was, that I think business schools, undergraduate or graduate, right, need to take this on more, right? They need to, if you're preparing people for being successful in the workforce, I think more and more that EQ piece is going to be critical. One of the challenges is it's sometimes hard to measure. So it's kind of people know it when they see it, but they want us, a lot of people to fund initiatives around it, say, well, unless I can see specific scores or progress. And so, when Sigal and I had this infamous lunch, I declined being a doctoral student, but I offered to fund instead other doctoral students. No, but I feel like that is the next step, and I think there is so much focus on data and analytics right now, and our company embraces it in so many different areas, but we still are missing, right, great data and analytics around this kind of emotional intelligence piece. And so, I feel like that's something that's worthy and needed right now in the business world.
All right. So talk a little bit about Vail and what's happening in the industry.
Sure.
So the first question, and just in case a few people here haven't solidified their spring break plans, if they were going to fly somewhere in the country for snow, where would you send them on Thursday night?
Definitely go to Colorado right now.
Okay.
I would not have said that. This was a very challenging year, actually, for skiing in Colorado, especially, and Park City, and in Utah. It has totally shifted, and it's now incredible. But Christmas was the worst Christmas in terms of snow conditions in Vail's history.
Right.
30% worse than the next worst year. Just to show you. And now, incredible, right? Amazing amount of snow. Really terrific conditions. So that said, you're probably not going to get a room. So, go to the Poconos.
Somehow I have a feeling that's not their spring break destination either. One of the things Vail is really well known for is the introduction of the Epic Pass, right? And that was really a game changer for the ski industry. What led to the introduction of the Epic Pass, and how do you continue to see it evolve as competitors come out with the Icon Pass and things like that?
So I think one of the biggest challenges around the ski business, obviously, is its dependence on snowfall or conditions. Yeah. And so where the industry was, 15, 20 years ago, was that, if it snowed, then the ski business, the ski resort would do well. And if it didn't snow, then it would have a tough year. And interestingly, the model for the industry was that if you wanted to buy a season pass, you could, but the price was exorbitant. So it was, at Vail, it's about $1,800 for a season. So 10 years ago, when we launched the Epic Season Pass, we reduced the price of a season pass from $1,800 to $600. And when we did that, people actually thought we were kidding or had made a mistake, because nobody had ever seen, it was like a 60, 70% reduction. But what we were doing was a risk transfer. And so what we said was, hey, we will give you, our guests, an incredible deal, one of the best deals in travel, if you buy that pass before the season starts. And I think the power of it became this feeling by our guests that this deal was so amazing that they had to have it. But for the company, getting people to move to before the season gave us a lot of stability. Yeah. And that has shifted, right, for us, the entire industry. So this year, for instance, even though our skier visits, I think it was through January 7th or so, I think we're down 12% because of the weather issues. Actually, our lift ticket revenue was up 4%. And it was because we had already booked 40% of our lift ticket revenue before the season began, and it was up 20% going into this season because we had just grown the program. And so that has created this huge shift. It also has created more loyalty, right? Just broader loyalty, not just this one piece. It has created, I think, skiers and riders feeling like they're part of the in-club. They can ski when they want. We see, actually, once we introduce this product, we have seen actual start times on the mountain, right, move from 8:30 in the morning to 9 to 9:30 to 10 to 10:30 because people feel like, oh, well, I have a whole season of skiing and I'm not buying my incremental day. So even if I get on the mountain at 10:30, then we actually see that those people score higher on their Net Promoter Score and satisfaction scores than the people who get up at 8:30 in the morning, right, to get the most out of their day that they possibly can. So it has really shifted a lot of those pieces. We actually have been out for the whole time, all 10 years, trying to get our competitors to copy us. And the reason is that even though we have grown this program from 50,000 passes 10 years ago to 750,000 passes today, sold all 50 states, 100 countries, it still represents actually a relatively small percentage of the total amount of skiing and lift tickets that are purchased. And our job is actually to move more and more people to buy that product. And if competitors join in, which they're now doing, it convinces people, you know what, everyone has to buy their skiing in advance. And sure, people will choose between us and others, but the more people that buy their skiing in advance, that's kind of the ultimate protection for the industry.
So the Icon Pass that was introduced with Steamboat and Aspen and many other mountains participating.
Terrible, terrible mountains. Mountains you would never go to.
Yeah, oh well, especially the ones in Texas. Right?
Even worse.
Did that draw any immediate response?
From us?
Yeah.
I think, no, I wouldn't say an immediate response, but I do think that it has started to codify this point that I was making earlier. So I think a lot of ski resorts are now saying to themselves, okay, by the way, a lot of people fought the Epic Pass when we first introduced it. Other ski resorts thought we were going to ruin the business by lowering the price. Communities thought that, resorts were going to be overrun with too many people. And so there was actually quite a lot of negativity. And so what we're seeing now is a little bit of a, hey, no, this is what we need to do. And so the industry is kind of now realigning. Either, Telluride came onto our pass this year. And so I think that's probably a decision that 2 years ago, they didn't want to make because they wanted to be completely independent. And now they're kind of saying, oh, wait a minute, we don't want to sell to Vail, but we should probably have a partnership, much like you see with the airlines, right, where everybody kind of aligns with some frequent flyer program. So I think you're going to start to see that, I think, within the industry.
And you obviously get to know these customers, the Epic Pass customers, pretty well, right?
Not about all 750,000. Man, I know I'm good with names, but
that would be awesome. I'm an Epic Pass member, so at least we know each other.
We know each other. That's one.
But are you developing? How are you using the data that comes along with season passes and repeat customers? And I was sharing with you before. This is, I think, our 4th year in a row in Keystone over the Christmas, New Year's break. I mean, you start to know people's preferences pretty well.
You do, and I think the great thing about skiing is that people are super passionate, tend to be higher income, so they can spend a lot of money at the resorts. But the problem is it's only a small percentage of the total population in the U.S. And so our job actually is to figure out a way to find the people who are interested in skiing and then communicate with them in the right way to get them to come. 10, 20 years ago, we actually couldn't do that at all. We do not have the scale to do mass marketing, even though our product is incredibly visual. So television commercials would be amazing. But now with the advent of digital technology and being able to communicate with somebody both through the internet and through email, but also in this more personalized way, has been a huge sea change in how we go to market. So 10 years ago, our primary marketing tool was beautiful pictures in ski magazines and travel magazines. We would send direct mail brochures to people. We don't. That's probably 5% of our marketing budget today. When we introduced the Epic Pass, everyone had to give us their name and all of their information. And so that is where this started. So we said, oh, wait a minute, we've got 50,000 people in the program, and we basically sent out the same message the next year saying, hey, you should buy again. But then the year after that, we said, oh, wait a minute, actually, they're not all the same. So maybe we could segment these 70,000 people into 3 or 4 segments. So today we have 100 segments, right, of the 750,000 people. And every single person in our pass program is scored for likelihood to renew, likelihood to churn, likelihood to go to another resort. And that allows us actually, so we sometimes will sell people lower priced products, offer them lower priced products, because we realize they're likely to churn. And so instead of selling them the exact same thing again, we actually promote a product that might be cheaper, we make less money, but better than them churning out of the program. The next step for this is actually in everyone else who doesn't buy a season pass. Yeah. So about 5 years ago, on non-season pass holders, we collected about 25, 30% data. We collected data on 20 to 35% of those folks. Today, that's 95%. By pushing them online, by making sure we pick it up at the window when they come to us. And the reason is that most people, if you go to Vail, some people are loyalists and will come back. But actually, for the person who's not going to go to Vail next year, the vast majority, 80 to 90% of those, it's not that they had a bad time at Vail, it's that actually they want a different experience. Sure. And what we call samplers. And so the industry right now is oriented around, if you went to Vail last year, we just market for you to come back to Vail. And what we're doing this year for the first time is saying, if you went to Vail last year, but based on your data, we know that actually you're a sampler, well then we actually market a different resort to you. So we don't market for you to come back to Vail, we say, hey, Breckenridge, or if we can come up with, well, maybe it's Whistler, or maybe it's Stowe. Now the risk in that is if we're wrong, yeah, you could lose some business, but over all of these years, we've been able to build up kind of the analytic approach to actually understand where our guest is likely to go next and make sure we focus our marketing in that area.
Now, are you able to complement that kind of data that you're gathering with on-mountain data that says, here's the kind of skier I am, here's the kind of terrain I like, here's how long I might be out there?
Yes.
And where should I ski next year? That's where this is all boiling to.
So what we did was we, about 6 years ago, we put an RFID chip in every single lift ticket and season pass that people had. And so in addition, when we scan you at the bottom of the mountain to make sure you have a pass, we don't actually have to have you take your pass or lift ticket out. We just scan it with an RFID scanner through your clothes, which was, our guests loved because nobody likes fumbling with their pass. But then we also put readers on every single lift across the whole mountain. So we actually are collecting data on every single lift that somebody is taking, how many vertical feet they're skiing on a particular day or for a particular season. And we can also tell, who you're skiing with by seeing, do we see, your RFID code with somebody else's 4 times on the same lift? Yeah, it's probable that, that you guys are skiing together. So that does give us even more information on exactly, if you're somebody who skis 5,000 vertical a day, that tells us something. If you're trying to ski 50,000 vertical a day, that tells us something else in terms of what marketing message we want to put in front of you.
And does this have Disney Magic Band type aspirations?
So it does, although we were out before the Magic Band. But what we don't do, and what Disney obviously, and the reason why it took Disney longer and a lot more money is because they are personalizing the communication to the guest with the Magic Band. Right. So obviously when your kid, or maybe you, go through the ride, they're talking directly to you.
Am I supposed to take my kids to Disney World?
I never did. No, I never did. Just want on the record. Sorry, Jacob. But and so we're not going to change. We use our technology behind the scenes. So Disney is using their technology right in the guest experience. But for us, obviously, people are coming to us for that authentic outdoor experience in nature. So anything we do can't actually, if you were getting on a lift and we had some hologram, talking to you, no, I think that would be a negative, right. And perceived as a negative. So it is like that, but without that other piece.
Got it. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. You I was picturing the hologram and what it might be telling me, so I had to get
Maybe we
moved
could
by
use
that.
you as a hologram.
Doctoral student or
Yes,
hologram.
exactly.
One or the other. Vail recently announced a zero carbon impact, right? Zero net carbon footprint by 2030. Obviously, the business is very dependent on the climate. So can you talk a little bit about that decision and also about how you achieve such a lofty goal?
Yeah, so we announced a goal just, I guess it was last summer,
Yeah.
that was to get to a zero net footprint and actually zero waste to landfill by 2030. So our product is the outdoors, right? And so that's what we sell. And so I do think we have a special responsibility to obviously protect and take care of the environment. And so that pervades everything that we do. I think this decision, though, was about 6 years ago. We said, okay, what is the biggest impact we can make to help with the issues around climate change? And it was to reduce our footprint. And how would we do that? It was just by reducing our energy use. And so we set out a goal to reduce our energy use by 10%, and actually got there in 3 years. And then set another goal to reduce our energy by 10%, and actually got another 9% of that by last year. And so it was actually that led to the confidence to be able to come out and say, okay, we've actually made enough progress that we know our company, can now try and get, and what we said was another 15% in reduction in energy use. And the truth is, that first 10%, well, that was a little bit easy. It was just kind of behavioral management. So we had restaurants all over the mountain that actually were heated to 68 degrees all through the night. So I was like, well, no, let's turn them down and not heat the restaurant when there's nobody in there. But now we're at much tougher, right, more challenging and more sophisticated solutions in terms of how we get the other 15%. So one, we had confidence that we could, in total get down to kind of a 35% reduction in total energy use. The second piece is that our company is now of a size that we can buy energy directly. And so we were willing to make the commitment that we would buy if we would first go to our existing utility providers and say, we want you to put on green energy, and we're willing to buy that directly. Then next, if we go out and try and build plants in our service areas that were green, and then finally, if nothing else, actually go out and build plants in other service areas, but at least putting new green energy into the grid directly, not just buying credits, but actually we would truly buy the power from this new plant. And I think I think it's putting the politics of it aside. I just think most companies realize that this is smart business, and that this is one, it's locking in actually stable energy prices, right, from renewable sources, and that ultimately the world is going to, right, regardless of where the U.S. ultimately gets to, it's like we are going to move towards this over the next decade. And so in our minds, this was the right thing to do, but also the smart thing to do.
The climate change and the potential impacts of climate change, what kinds of strategic debates does that kick off for you and your executive team, your board?
Yeah, I think we focus primarily on variability. So, because that's what we're seeing. So we're not seeing a kind of like incremental warming every year. What we're seeing is that, there are these weather events. I think everybody's seeing that, where you have, so Stowe, in Vermont, well, they had great snow, and then it was negative 25 degrees, right, over Christmas, while Vail was, 45 degrees and no snow. And so the question is, how do we orient our company around dealing with that up and down? And I think it's one, that season pass discussion that we had. Two is geographic diversity. And so the weather is not necessarily correlated across, right, our region. And the further we can get to being in places like Japan and China and Europe, which is our goal, that will also, right, provide that diversity. And then the third is actually investing in the resorts themselves, especially the base areas. So resorts that have great retail and shopping and spas and hotels and other activities, actually, so if you were in Vail this winter, even though it was the worst winter ever, actually their sales tax revenue was up. And it's because people still come because they want to be in these towns and in these communities. They just don't go up on the mountain as much. But that obviously, as opposed to people not showing up at all. I think ultimately, a scenario where there is no snow in Colorado, right? No, we're not preparing for that. At the same time, obviously, once that happens, right, there are some other things probably going on in the world, where I've been very clear that I don't think skiing in Aspen and Vail are probably not the most important thing, right, if there's no snow in Colorado. So we'll probably be working on something else at that point.
So Vail's been recognized, as Sigal said in her introduction, as one of the 50 most innovative companies in the world, one of the top 10 most innovative travel companies. And I want to kind of bring this back to culture a little bit. We were talking about it in the beginning. I've heard you attribute that to culture, right? And even as you're talking about your climate change or energy efforts, you said, look, the first part's behavioral, and then we get on to technical solutions. Tell us about what it's like to try and build and maintain or sustain that kind of innovative culture.
I think when people hear the word innovation, it's a very uplifting word. Yeah. People love it. But innovation...
That's good, because we use it a lot.
Right, we do. But actually, right, innovation is actually change. And once you say change, well, then everybody kind of braces. But the truth is that is what innovation is. It is change. And I think there's a misconception that innovation is about just the idea, that like the Epic Pass. And I do get people all the time, of course, oh, wow, it must have been your idea. It's so amazing. And it's like, it was a good idea by not just me, but a group of people. But actually what's made it successful is how it was implemented and embraced across our entire company. Because when we first launched it, every resort did not want to necessarily get behind this one corporate product. Right? They all had their own products. And so ultimately, in my mind, I think innovation is almost solely around culture. That actually, I find at least that there are actually many good ideas, so many amazing ideas, and so many brilliant people that always have suggestions. The question, though, is can you rally an entire company around that concept to truly make systemic change? And so I think the two things I always talk about is alignment, which I think means everyone actually believes in the culture. And two is, just not having that fear of change or loss or failure that is so prevalent and I think gets in the way of so many people doing what they ultimately really want to do, or a company, kind of getting to where it wants to get to. So in my mind, and I have been very clear with every one of our stakeholders. I'm not sure how many, I think it kind of goes in one ear out the other. People kind of hear me talk about culture and then they're like, oh no, it's the idea. But it really isn't the idea.
So as CEO then, how do you, and in relation to both the range of ideas that are out there and then building alignment around the idea so that you can implement it, how do you think about your own time allocation? How do you stay focused on these important priorities?
I think it's around, in my mind, I think in general it's around making sure that you are allocating your time to what you say is actually important. And even though I don't know that anybody really tracks my time in the company, I think they get a sense. And so I probably spend 60 to 65% of my time on leadership and culture. Wow. At least. And both not just sitting and writing, a paper about it, but actually going to all of our resorts and spending time communicating, one in person, 1 to 10, 1 to 20, 1 to 30, sure, rather than 1 to 300 or 1 to 500. And the hope, for me, in terms of how and that's it's a huge commitment because we have 14 resorts, 3 different countries. But the hope is, that those people who I'm with leave the meeting and, that they have each one of them 10, 20 people that they know throughout the rest of their division and spread that message, right? And literally, point by point. And then I'd say this, it's probably another 20% that is tactical. I think around, making decisions and then there's, I think, maybe another, I've lost my math because it wasn't that's why I'm not an engineer.
We're 80 to 85.
Something, okay.
You have 15 left.
Okay, good. Yeah, so the
and
rest.
if you're giving 110%, you have 25% left.
So the rest, I would say, is I think on something, that's not as tactical or on your to-do list. So a little bit of white space, and that could be personnel related, it could be strategic, it could be fixing guest service issues, something that you just don't max out, don't be at 110%. And I do tell my executives that I think my team that report to me, I think struggle with this, and they have a lot on their plates, and it's like, when you're at 110%, you are not going to be innovative. There's just no way that you have any time, to sit with a new idea.
What a gift that you can kind of clap somebody on the back and be like, go ski for a day.
Yeah,
that I don't mind that way, right?
That's true. Although I don't think they would say that I do that, but no, I think it's. I think what I tell everybody that comes to work, especially in our corporate office, which is in between Boulder and Denver, is you're not coming here to ski. You're coming here to work on skiing. And either that matters to you, which, like, for me, it does. Like, the fact that I get up every day, and even if I don't go near a mountain, but all I do all day is talk about and how to make skiing better, that motivates me. But I have heard the complaint about not getting enough time on the mountain.
Well, is there ever enough time? Is there? We had a number of students who submitted questions before, as part of RSVPing, so I want to bring some of these questions in as we start to round up our time here. So the first question, I thought this was a wonderful leadership and culture question. The question is, as a leader of an organization, have you ever had to let down a coworker or a fellow employee and choose not to pursue the project they were extremely passionate about? How do you handle that, and how do you keep them engaged as you go in a different direction?
Yeah, I'd say that's like 95% of the time.
Right.
Because in an organization as big as ours, and with so many different resorts and divisions, and everybody thinking that their own priority is the top priority, you are invariably saying no to a lot of people. And I do think that is the ultimate success of being focused and strategic, is if you're not saying no all the time, you probably are not being focused and strategic. And so what I tell people about this a lot is that that people need to, and to keep them engaged, I guess, people need to feel like, no, putting the idea forward, thinking it through, being able to express it with all of its positives and negatives, that experience alone is actually the achievement and the learning. And the fact that the company chooses not to do that, for whatever reason, can't be seen as a disappointment. I mean, and of course it will to some extent, and I tell people this, that there are plenty of ideas we don't do, but the impression that's left by the people pitching them, makes me think, hey, no, I may not be doing that idea, but clearly that person is really bright and thoughtful and has done amazing work, and that's ultimately what needs to matter. And this is true too around getting capital improvements at the resorts, as getting who gets to have a new lift,
right.
And every resort wants a new lift. But yes, getting this kind of thought process that pitching your project, is the end in and of itself, not the means to, because that puts in somebody else's hands, right, your success, which it shouldn't be.
Any trust concerns at all about
me? No. No, I think in our industry, there's on the one hand, there's a sense that we own a lot of resorts, which is true in one framework. We own 13 resorts in North America. There are 730 ski resorts in North America. I think the bigger concern that I think people usually have is around the kind of local drive-to market. So resorts around Denver. If you're in Philadelphia and you're going to get on a plane to go fly to a ski resort, actually now you could be going anywhere in the world to fly to your ski resort. So I don't think that broader market has those same challenges. But I think absolutely it's important for our industry to make sure that within any local market there's enough choice.
Are there particular or surprising challenges that come along with being a public company CEO?
I think
smile says yes.
Yeah, I think what I was not prepared for, coming from private equity, is the projection. Right? There is, I think, in general, there is in our culture, right, the CEO of a company, everything about that company is now projected onto that CEO. And by the way, good and bad. So our company's success, like the other best people, that must mean Rob is doing a good job. Our company makes a mistake, that must mean Rob is an idiot. And you multiply that by, just a lot of people who are super passionate about our business. And navigating that is a trick. And I think, certainly my prior life was more about, hey, let's get the answer right. It was not necessarily about selling that answer to all of these communities and this super passionate industry. That is where also the emotional intelligence, though, comes up. Yeah. Because I do think knowing and watching my own emotions and how I react to that dynamic, I think, is critical.
Yeah. Someone's always watching, right?
Someone is always watching, and I think people can read through your emotions very quickly, depending on how you react. And so having that understanding of your impact, I think, is important.
How about the competition dynamic with other leisure industries? So you think about high-end spas and ranches and destinations. Is that competitive dynamic changing over the last decade?
I don't think we don't compete as directly, I think, with these other leisure activities, but we do. I think a good question for us as an industry is, ensuring that more and more people want to ski. And I think we've done one thing really well and one thing really poorly. So the thing we've done really well is that the sport ultimately embraced snowboarding, which it initially fought, but ultimately embraced it. And so, for anyone who watched the Olympics the last couple of weeks, how many winter sports are there, right? I mean, snowboard cross and half pipe and freestyle, and I mean, it was just almost an unlimited number of these new creative ideas, right, about how to recreate on a mountain. And so the fact that our industry ultimately embraced that and kind of the whole action sports genre is why we're still relevant and have cachet with, the millennial generation, where I think tennis and golf have struggled because their sport is essentially exactly the same as it was 20 years ago, where ours has actually moved. Where we've done a terrible job is diversity. And so our sport is, to even say predominantly white is an understatement, right? It is almost exclusively white with just very small portions of any other race. And so I think we have not solved that issue. And I think as we look to the next 10 or 20 years, that is something that we have to address if we want to ensure that we remain relevant as we look to the future.
So two final questions as we start to wrap up here. One's going to be a personal question, and one will be advice for our audience here. I remember, and I'll just give you kind of my personal reaction, but if I go back to, I think it was late September, early October, reading in the paper that you and your wife had made a decision to start a charitable fund funded by more than $50 million to support the mountain communities of the areas in which Vail operates. Just incredibly touching, know what the industry means to those mountain communities on both the good side and the flat side. Can you talk a little bit about that decision and why you decided to make such a big investment?
I guess my wife and I moved out to Boulder planning to be farmers. Right. And we didn't really move there to necessarily make money. And even when I took this role, that wasn't my focus was on some of the other goals we talked about. And I guess, we've been fortunate enough that the company has been very successful. And we actually, did not, our plan ultimately was, kind of, well, what do we do with the success? And I think we both felt like the right approach was to give it back to these communities that actually were the reason why we had success. And the truth is and the money, at least a huge focus of it, will be on mental health. And which, my wife and I are both passionate about, and obviously it's a bit of a continuum, right, through emotional intelligence and mental health on the other side. And the truth is these communities have a challenging kind of shadow side, where it's a tourist town and a lot of money and people come in and then they leave. And the truth is there is an impact to that both my wife and I feel like, we're in a great position to be able to help address.
Yeah. Well, it's just an incredible gift, an incredible investment. And then, so our traditional closing comment or traditional closing question would be, for our undergraduates, our MBA students who are here in the room and looking to embark on careers of passion and success and impact in much of the ways that we've been talking about here, what advice would you offer them as they plan to embark on this next phase?
Yeah, two things. One, EQ. It will, even if the first job you have or the next job you have coming out of MBA, even if, it doesn't seem like people are putting a priority on that, it will be the priority, right? It is what will ultimately make the difference in terms of, whether you get promoted and how you succeed. Obviously, you still need those skill sets and technical abilities. And the second thing is learn, right? I think so often I see folks who, come right out of either MBA or college, and they see sometimes either what's wrong with the company or what they don't like about their boss or they don't like about their whatever, and it's like, okay, maybe that's all true, but there's so much that actually you can take away from every single situation, even in a company where you're convinced you're going to leave because you're not happy, and you should. There is still so much learning, and so yeah, be a constant learner. And appreciate that for what it is. And that'll pay off huge.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thanks.
Rob Katz. That was great.